It's lovely to meet you all. I am here, we're going to have a bit of a chat about data practices and how we can do some kind of like quick practical things to really supercharge the data that is going into your project, business, idea, etc. So, a bit about me. I used to work for an organisation called TechNation. Has anyone heard of TechNation? A few people, yeah. So they are the government-backed agency tasked with making the UK the best place to be a tech entrepreneur. So I was a data scientist there doing research into everything from business population here in the UK and globally, talent, investment, all sorts. And I still do about 1 day a week there as a consultant, but I've now moved on to Cognition X, who are a artificial intelligence startup based in the West End in London. So we try to bring clarity to the fast-paced world of emerging technologies and AI. So that's what I do there, which is fun and interesting. If you're interested in AI or TechNation at all, we can come have a chat afterwards. So what's going to happen today? We're going to do a bit about basic data management. If at any point you don't understand anything, just put your hand up and we can go through it. Business intelligence systems, which again, you don't need to know what that is right now, but I'll come on to that in a minute. Harnessing open data, because actually there is data all over the place, which can help you and your business, and you don't necessarily know it's out there. And then we're hopefully going to have something that resembles a bit of a sales pipeline by the end of it, hopefully, particularly if you're working in a B2B context. So that's what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. We're not looking at hardcore database architecture or kind of fancy statistics and machine learning using R and Python or anything like that. All of this kind of stuff isn't going to be covered today because, frankly, it's scary and lots of people do these kind of things just to show off rather than them actually having good business purpose. However, if you are interested in any of these kind of things, particularly machine learning, we can also go and have a chat afterwards. It will not be covered in this session, however. Am I right in thinking everyone here has got a project, idea, company, business of some description which they can focus their ideas on? I'm getting nods. Great. Okay, so we're going to kick off with a kind of quick... Oh, one thing I should say. There are going to be a few tools that we talk about today. All of them are either free or free until you go over a certain limit. There's nothing that you're going to have to spend any money on today if you want to use any of the tools that we demo in this presentation. They're all either open source or on a freemium model. The data community in particular, it's worth noting, is highly collaborative, much like kind of software development as well. People like to collaborate, work on things together, and not put them behind paywalls. So, thinking about your business or your idea or product, with the kind of paper on the table or with your computer or whatever, and perhaps you want to do this as a group collaboratively, think about where are the data streams that are going into your business, your idea, your projects. That would be really good. So that could be anything from, say, customer data coming in through a CRM system, a customer relations manager, or even simple things like people visiting a website, that kind of thing. Literally anything, there are no right or wrong answers. So kind of if you have a bit of a brainstorm, work on that together, that would be awesome. The next slide is my take on this as a kind of, and there's not really any right or wrong answer, but kind of have a think where the different things that you've discussed might fit into these 4 areas of a quadrant that I'm about to show you. When I kind of like break down an individual business and I look at their different data streams, I look at these kind of 4 areas. So we have machine or platform generated stuff that's coming through. So that is any kind of data produced by your digital assets. So, you know, kind of Google, think of it as kind of like Google Analytics kind of style data, or maybe stuff to do with emails, if you do automated marketing, that kind of thing. All of that machine-generated data, of which there is loads of. Even if you have, say, a 3-page website or a single holding page, your website, as long as it's getting traffic, will still be generating a lot of data that you can leverage to do your own thing. Think of an individual journey of someone coming to a website. They arrive, they might click on various different points on a page, They might then click onto another page, and throughout that you've got things like the amount of responsiveness, the kind of like the lag time for the website to load coming from a database. You also have the amount of time they might have dwelled on a page, where their exit point was, where their entry point, the list goes on, and you think you're multiplying that by however many users you're getting to your site. It really is quite sizable. Customer data, so that's a bit more obvious. So that might be, is that people familiar with what a CRM or a customer relationship management tool is? So that's the kind of stuff that you might get there. Generally data that will be declared by a customer to you. They will give their consent for you to have that data. So they might sign up to a mailing list or purchase a product from you, something like that. Then you have this internal operational stuff, which we're not really going to touch that too much on today, but that would be things, even things down to kind of like HR records, everything from, say, a company org chart, finance and accounts, that's where all of that kind of stuff goes in. It's probably not something we're going to be too concerned with today. And finally, third-party data. So particularly if you're doing research or scoping out or creating a strategy, you might be using data that isn't necessarily your own. You might be using third-party open data or data you might have purchased. Say you want to go into a new market, or you're looking to, say, release a new product or something like that. You might want to do some proprietary research around that. So that is where third-party comes in. We are going to be doing some work with some third-party data today, which is open. Does this all make sense? Cool. Okay, I'm getting, because this is something that I've used before, and it's very much a kind of amalgamation of my experience of working in business, and also a rehash of various other similar data nerds like me, kind of creating something like that. I'm glad that does make sense. Does it kind of broadly seem, can anyone think of anywhere else, any other quadrant that might want to be on that slide? No, that is good news. Right, cool. Okay, so what we're going to do with all of this data when this slide wakes up, there we go. What we're going to do with all of this data, has anyone got any ideas? Think of it, and for this purpose, we are going to ignore this internal operational. That's, if you've got a big HR team or accounts or something, that's the kind of thing you might want to think about. But think about, say, machine and platform generated, so maybe stuff from your website, customer-related data and customer-related data. So you could run away and hide from it all and just think, oh, shit, like, I can't be looking at all of this, blah, 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 blah. You could do some fancy statistics, which could be fun. You probably get a bit of an ego trip. It's the kind of thing I do for fun. You could visualize it maybe. Does everyone know what visualizing data, what that means? Broadly? Graphs, exactly, thank you. Store it in a database. What's a database? You know, what is a database? Right. So you could do all of that, you could do all this kind of stuff. But actually, really, if you remember one thing from today, literally one thing, the one thing you need to be doing with this data is using it to make decisions. If you're not using it to do that, like, really, to be brutally honest, it's pointless. Actually, this is the really, really important thing here. You want to be, whatever data you have, getting the value out of it and making sure that you're using it for the best purposes that you possibly can. That's not to say that if you're not at that moment in time leveraging that data, you should just throw it down the toilet. That's certainly not true, because you think in future you may want to start leveraging this kind of stuff. So if, for instance, you have a website and you're not currently making use of the metric dwell time, that's not to say stop tracking that. You might want to be using that in the future. However, fundamentally, you want to be using data to make decisions and drive the decisions that you are making as a business, rather than kind of licking your finger and sticking your finger in the air and kind of like feeling where the wind goes. It's surprising how many organizations don't use data to make decisions. And if you kind of start from the beginning using information and intelligence to really drive decisions, that is you're onto a winner there. It's startling how some really quite large organizations still do things just because that's the way we've always done them. Right, we're going to have a quick go at a couple of things, mainly looking at website data now. I'm going to do a bit of a kind of demo online, and then you guys can have a bit of a play yourself. But we are going to, about how we can use, to show you how we can use data to make decisions, create a bit of a dashboard, so people can visualize what's going on their website. Has anyone come across Google Data Studio before? Yeah, cool. Do you use it? Cool, cool. So, the best thing about Google Data Studio is it's free, which is really nice. The next best thing about it is it's a web app, so you don't need any software on your computer whatsoever. You view the entire thing in a browser. This is what's known as a business intelligence system. Has anyone heard of a business intelligence system before? Or you make it so that you can, you can kind of like visualize, take what looks like an appearingly complex data set or data frame and bring some clarity and understanding to what's going on there. Has anyone heard of a piece of software called Tableau? Yeah, a few people. It's very expensive. I wouldn't recommend it. I used to be a kind of trained Tableau. I did a bit of consultancy with Tableau. I really wouldn't recommend it. Power BI. Has anyone used Power BI? That's another business intelligence system. That's almost free, so that's another good one. It will not work on a Mac. It's a Microsoft product. Google Data Studio works in the cloud. It works really well. Data.world. Has anyone come across Data.world before? Heard of Data.world? Through me. Yeah. So, Data.world is a way of centralizing all of your data sets. I'm assuming most people are familiar or have heard of Microsoft Excel. So Excel is the world's best used database and also probably the world's worst one. Although it's very good at many things, quick analysis, that kind of thing, keeping accounts, that kind of stuff. If you want to do something kind of quick and dirty, actually, in order to be able to collaborate on data and keep things in a central place, this is a really good and also free, lightweight solution to keep your data in the cloud and collaborate on it with different people. So I'm going to quickly show you how these two might work, and then we're going to have a quick go at trying to make a Google Analytics dashboard, which is not as hard as it sounds. It really isn't. So if anyone has got, let me get off here, ignore that. We're going to come over here. So the first thing we're going to do is go here. So if anyone has got a computer in front of them or would like to be near someone who's got a computer around them or has a phone or anything, if you were to go to, just Google Data Studio, and you click on the first, I think it's, assuming it's the first link, click on it and you'll get to a page like this. I'm going to use it for free. So if we click here, once you get to this place, and you'll get to a sign in. If you have an account, a Google account of some description, you can log in. Otherwise, just create an account and just go through the process there. And I'm going to do it a bit interactively on the screen, and then we're going to you can have a go doing it with your own data as well. This system is not purely for visualizing Google Analytics whatsoever. You can hook this system up, and I'll show you in a minute, to literally anything. A Google Sheet, a database. If you're using something like a cloud database system, you can hook it up to that. I think you can hook it up to things like Twitter, Facebook, visualize all of those kind of things going on. It's really quite powerful. So everyone got a page that looks a bit like that? Yeah, cool. So, none of this involves, you do not need to know how to write any code for this. It's all drag and drop. And in my office in London, we have a big television screen in the middle. And I know UK Fast have similar offices over in the other building where they have big dashboards in offices. where we have a dashboard which looks a bit like this that I will show you now, which has all of our live data coming through from our platform. So I think we have about 20,000 visitors to our site every day. And this, all you have to do is type in your credentials to Google Analytics, if you already have Google Analytics set up, and you can have a nice live dashboard like this showing you exactly what is going on. Who has used Google Analytics before? Cool. A bit, okay, cool. If you haven't, it's advisable to have it on your website. I will show you very quickly. Will not go into it in huge amount of detail. But essentially, it tracks and monitors engagement on your website. It's very, very powerful and really rather interesting. You can do everything you can even look in real time exactly what's going on your site. Look where people are right in that real time. So taking all of this data in aggregate, and then you can put it on to a nice dashboard like this to help you drive decisions. Say I was interested in what was going on in the last quarter and I had a board meeting, I had a set of potential clients coming. I could go on here and I could say, right, last quarter, what was going on the website? I want to be able to track where people are coming from, how the site sessions are trending. I can see straight away. It's a very powerful tool to be able to make sales and persuade in terms of what's happening on your site. For those that don't know, a bounce rate on the far right-hand side. Does anyone know what a website bounce rate is? Exactly. So if you arrive on a website and you think, nah, it's not for me, you go straight off. That is considered a bounce. This site, which has got mock data going on, has 37.5% bounce rate, which is actually quite low. Blogging sites and news websites would have something closer to around 70–80%, where people literally just go to that news website just to view a single article and go straight off. It's a dashboard platform. It is for dashboarding in a way that Google Analytics isn't. Google Analytics is a tool to be able to look just as an individual, really. It isn't designed to be able to bring up in a board meeting and be able to show exactly what's going on. It's quite fiddly. The UX on user experience for Google Analytics is quite poor. Well, it's just quite a complex beast, and being able to have a dashboard like this is really, really useful. I'm going to show you the one that we use at work now to give you a kind of idea of what exactly is going on. And if you wanted to have a bit of a chat about ways that you could potentially use a dashboard like this in your business context and perhaps have a bit of a play with the platform, that would be wonderful. So, just whilst we're here, I've got lots of people who knows has heard of the word database or like, yeah, wicked, cool. My favourite saying, put it in the laterbase. Anyway, quick word on databases. Databases are everywhere, and people use, basically, it's just a storage solution for data. And actually, Excel is a form of a database. It stores data for yourself, but actually you get into, when you get into larger data sets, having something more kind of like rigorous and structured is really quite important. Little do you know, if you have a website, you have a database of some description. So even if you're running a WordPress site or something like that, there will be a database on the back end of that website which will be hosting your data, your web pages, your things like your password and your login details, all of that kind of stuff. You may not know that, but there is a database, probably a MySQL, which is a form of database, working in the background. Databases, lots of quite early stage companies will, whilst you're kind of extremely busy kind of working on strategy and sales and that kind of stuff, things like databases and kind of like storing your data quite often fall by the wayside. It's actually really important and ensuring that you have kind of like adequate storage solutions is really, really important. Database schema, that is what's known as basically a map of a database, so where everything fits and everything, they're really important. We're not going to get into loads of stuff around databases now, but I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview, just so you have a bit of an idea, because if you go beyond just having a kind of simple website and you start doing things like storing customer data and stuff, there's kind of no way getting around it. You need to have a database of some description. Even if it is just an out-of-the-box plug-and-play solution, that's fine. You do need somewhere where you're going to store things. In the world of databases, there are broadly two key things. So, has anyone heard of SQL or SQL before? We're getting a lot of nods around the room. So, SQL is known as structured query language, is the language of many relational databases, and use it to query. It has been around for donkey's years. I think SQL actually, I went to a talk a couple of weeks ago. SQL was first hit the blocks, I think, in the early 60s. So but it is still around today and a fundamental part of business. We use a SQL database where I work at the moment. At TechNation, some of our data was run on something different called NoSQL. Who's heard of NoSQL databases? Cool. They're all kind of like trendy and hip at the moment, if like a database ever could be, and aren't relational in the same way, which I'm not going to get into what that means at the moment, but that, if you're interested, we'll come have a chat afterwards. If anyone's heard of something called like MongoDB, that's probably the most famous NoSQL database at the moment. They're different. They both have different strengths and weaknesses, which, frankly, I don't want to bore you, so we're not going to get into all of that. But that's just to give you a kind of heads up. You're more likely to be using an SQL database. I'm going to power through, and then if you want to try these different things, that'd be really good. Lucidchart. Actually, before I get to Lucidchart, data flows. These are really important. So understanding where your data flows, so if it, say, comes from a customer who enters their details on a website, and then that then goes into your customer relations manager, and then that goes into an email client, which means that you then get to email that person. That is a data flow. You can see where your data has gone from a customer all the way through into your database and then out again as an email. You're using that. These data flows are really important, actually fundamental parts of business. Ultimately, things like computer science or software development, it is just manipulation of data. So these flows are really, really important. Lucidchart is a great tool that you can use to make sense of what's going on. It's a bit like, I hesitate to say it, a bit like Paint, but for technical software mapping. I mean, it's, again, drag and drop. It's really, really nice. And it's free. There's a freemium model, so you can use that to map different data flows within your business. I would really recommend doing that. Once I finish, you're more than welcome to go and have a go trying to use Lucidchart, which I think is a really good thing. Open data. This is the kind of, so we're now kind of moving towards how you can use open data for the purposes of your business. Who's heard of open data before? Yeah, a few hands. So there's this cultural movement, actually globally now, where data, where possible, if it can be made open for use of any kind, commercial or non-commercial, is actually to the benefit of society. Who uses Google Maps? There's people use Google Maps to do directions and stuff. If you're kind of searching for directions or something, all of the data that goes into that is open. That is all coming from open data. So things like the traffic data, train times, all of that kind of stuff, that is all open data being used in the world. And it's really, really powerful stuff. We're going to have a quick touch upon how you guys might be able to use open data. Crucially, it's free. Open data is completely free. There's reams and reams of it coming out from all over the place. And it's a bit of an untapped resource. We had a conversation earlier down here about how there's this tidal wave, particularly in the UK, of the government and official bodies opening up administrative data but lots of people still aren't using it. There's organisations like the Open Data Institute that now exist to basically promote the use of open data. Also the web. The web is another great source of data. You can scrape it, you can look at it, you can find out all sorts of juicy things at the moment from the web, and I would really recommend that as a data source. Probably a separate conversation after this. So, don't know why that's happened. Right, on the right hand, that's not important. The right hand side is important. So these are the kind of places I would suggest you go, just to get kind of like dip your toe. If you type in awesome public data GitHub on Google, you will be, who's heard of GitHub? Cool, we got quite a few hands. For people who don't know, GitHub is a form of version control platform. So it is a website where developers and people working on collaborative digital projects go and they collaborate on work. So they have version control, and you can ensure that you can work together effectively on different software projects. Using a form of version control called Git, but I won't get into that too much. But Awesome Public Data is a brilliant repository on GitHub. It has hundreds and hundreds of different open data sources, everything from biology through to social media. What else is there? Transport to the weather. So that's a great place to go. Go to DataMill North. That is the open data repository for the north of England, with specifically Northern English data. So it's got things all about, say, flooding levels in West Yorkshire, all the way through to kind of like cheese purchasing power in Cumbria. So that's very interesting. Data.gov is the open data portal for the government. So that is about opening up data that is generated by Parliament and the government. And then you have the Office for National Statistics. We're not going to use any of that right now, but we're going to use a different kind of open data. Big ethical question. So places like DataSplit, in fact, all of these sources all have a verification process to a certain extent. Things like the Office for National Statistics takes years to have data approved for use and availability on there. I think it's fair to say that things like the Awesome Public Data GitHub is basically a techie saying, yeah, no, I don't know. So it's these kind of different levels of verification. The best thing you can do, I think, is look how it's been used before. If it's been used before by other people and it's been cited before, I think that's always a good way of saying, yes, this is to use. Sense check it, make sure that it looks kind of roughly how you think it should look. Yeah, I think that's really important. Do a bit of digging around the research methods or about where this data was collected. I think, again, that's really important. I mean, there is a lot of crap out there, I think it's fair to say. These sources are pretty good. If you're not sure, tweet the Open Data Institute with the data set that you're potentially going to use. I think their Twitter handle is ODIHQ, @ODIHQ, something like that. They're very good people to speak to. So yeah, that's what I would say. But common sense as well is another good thing. I mean, you'll never be 100% accurate. However, things from like the Office for National Statistics are going to be pretty good in terms of the research methods used around them. But one thing that I want to say to all of you, no data is perfect by any means. That mantra is certainly not true. I remember I go into the laboratory at the Office for National Statistics and use their data sets down to kind of really fine-grain kind of like number of records, looking at billions of rows of data. It's not perfect by any means. There are issues in there as well as there are on the web and for other pieces of data, so nothing is perfect. Does that answer your question? All right, cool. So, I'm going to just close this and open this because it doesn't seem to... Here we go. Looks nice. So, what we're going to do now, whose company product is in a B2C environment, so in a business-to-customer kind of environment? One person-ish. Okay, 1.5 people. What about in a kind of more B2B environment? We've got a few more hands. Like, do people, yeah. So B2B being business, you're selling to other businesses, and B2C meaning you're selling to individuals, customers. So we've got a kind of mixture here. What we're going to have a try and do is create some kind of sales pipeline. So a sales pipeline is think of it essentially as a funnel of people that you're trying to push through so that they will sell from you. So you might have various people that you want to push through your funnel. They might be at various stages of the funnel. The end of the funnel is you get some money off them and they buy a product from you. The beginning of the funnel might be them showing a loose interest or even just somebody in the correct sector. So in order to populate this funnel and get people in there, we're going to use for the B2B sales pipeline, the Companies House data. So the government have record every company in the UK. There's about 8 million of them. And every month, if you want, you can have a daily update of that feed, and you can know exactly what's changing on a daily basis. For the purposes of this, we're probably not going to use that. What they do also is produce a monthly output. So every month, they just dump a massive CSV file with all 8 million businesses. And you can chop it and change it and slice it and look at where companies are near you, their addresses and what sector they're in, which is really powerful if you want to know where all hardware tech startups are in South Manchester. You can very easily find out who all those people are, who all the companies are, and crucially, who all the people are who own those companies. And that's where you start getting the basis of a sales pipeline and knowing exactly what's going on. Very powerful stuff, all free, all open. And it's there to be leveraged. So at that link up there, if you go to download.companieshouse.gov.uk, you might need the /en_output. It might redirect. That will get you to the data dump. And it will look something a bit like this. So... It will look a bit like this. You'll get to a page like this, free company data product. No, it's the free. Another way they make it free, anyway, it should be free. It's your right as a citizen of this country to be able to look at all the company details. So over here we have company data either as a single file, bearing in mind that is 353 megabytes in a zip. So actually that's something probably around 2 gigabytes worth of data. It's a lot of data. And consider your computer before you might think about doing that. However, they also have them as nice little individual files over here. If you're interested, I think I would suggest going to the bottom one down here, which is only 4 megabytes zipped. So if you just want to have a little play, I believe the little part 6 one is all of the companies in Northern Ireland. So there we go. So if you come down here, there's there's 12 of them. All the companies in Northern Ireland are down here. So bearing in mind you could do this for anyone you might be interested in, different parts of the UK, and you can get it there. I generally open these kind of files using Python or R, which are programming languages, which if you're interested in, we can have a chat afterwards. But they're all there, and if you're not less interested in it in a more aggregate, if you're not interested in it necessarily as an aggregate, has anyone just used the Companies House search before and searched for different companies? Yeah, lots of people have. So you can also do that in that way. So that is a nice way of trying to create a sales pipeline using that there. If you're interested, now we're going to look at it in a more kind of B2C fashion. Whilst your target audience are now going to be less people, and less companies and more people, individuals, punters like you and me. So a nice way you might be wanting to do some social advertising. The best way that you can probably do that is by having a really kind of like nice defined set of data parameters around how you're going to define that audience. So are they under a certain age? Are they of a certain gender? Do they live in a certain place? What are their interests? That kind of thing. Things like Twitter and Facebook both support promotions and do paid advertising, and you can specify to a really high degree exactly who your target audience potentially are going to be. So I think that is something that you would do. When thinking about what parameters you're going to use, fall back on data and think about, right, who exactly are my target audience? You might want to look at your Google Analytics and see the particular ages of people coming in, or the gender, or where they are, or use one of the other open data sets and try and look exactly where people are coming from before you define that sales pipeline on a social platform. So go back to Google Data Studio. You can hook that up to your analytics from Facebook or from Twitter to see exactly the effect it might be having. So how that money is being best spent, and if it is actually kind of like converting into some sales for you. Just some summary things. Keeping things in good order to start and having some good data practice and ensuring that things are in the right place is really, really important. Even as just a start, I would suggest having a go looking at using data.world as a potential solution. We haven't really had time to touch on this today, but you can have a free personal account and you can host your data on data.world, which is just a place for it to be store and be nicely there, and you can collaborate on it in that way. Yeah, sure. Cool. So data.world, they are a startup based in Texas. I like them very much. I've got socks on with their owls on today. Right. And they... I had the pleasure of going and working with them last summer in the Texan heat. Anyway, so we're going to have it. So what you do is you sign in or sign up. Oh God, you're about to see a really embarrassing photo of me. Oh no, you're not. I'm on my pretend account. So this is my account I just used to show people how to use it. So when you arrive, you'll see this page. It looks quite slightly overwhelming. So I would very much encourage you to take the tour and watch the video and see exactly what's going around. Again, this is completely free. And how Data.world works is it works around projects. So say you were doing a sales pipeline project and you wanted to be able to try and convert more leads into sales and try and identify potential people to say, sign up to Tech Manchester or buy certain products from you. You might want to have a project around that. So create a project, and we're going to call that sales pipeline. And we're going to create this. One thing, Data.world also supports open data, so you get 5 private projects. So that's 5 projects that don't get shared with anyone else. You can have an unlimited number of projects, but beyond those 5, the rest of them have to be open to the world. So anyone can use them and play with them, which is fine for some things. So if you were, say, I don't know, wanting to do some analysis on which is like the best color Smartie or something, like it's fine. But if it's like, kind of like personal details or something like that, you really don't want to be doing this. Also, bear in mind from a GDPR point of view, if you're uploading lots of personal details that you've potentially collected, you need to be looking at terms and conditions of websites like this and ensuring that, in particular, their storage facilities are not in the US and that they're at least in Europe or in Canada. And that's very important. So creating a project. And so we can just have, now we're going to add some data to our project. So you can see there are loads of integrations here that you can now, upload to data.world. I would really stress that if you're more than just an individual person working on this, or you're doing it as part of a team, or even if you, just for peace of mind in terms of computers breaking, etc., try to put things in the cloud, even on Google Drive or on something like data.world, because it will stay there, it will be far more secure than it will be on your personal computer. So I might say I might want to put something in from Excel, so I could go here and I could choose to enable this integration. authorize Excel, and then I'm going to upload something from Excel, blah, 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 get started. And then we are going to have to go back. Oh, I might have to go and accept something in my inbox. Anyway, so we've got this sales pipeline project. And we're going to add some data, which is what we were going to do before. I'm just going to choose something. Okay, I'm not going to do this right now, but you need to also add it into your Excel on a desktop. Instead, I'm just going to go to one which I made earlier so that you get the kind of Blue Peter vibes, actually something that has happened. So if that's a JSON file of, I've been scraping the web for companies. So this is what it looks like actually in the wild. So you have a project directory, which is the project that I just created. And down on your left-hand side, I have a series of Google Sheets that I have uploaded and synced up to data.world. So you can see them all there. So you might have one which is hot leads, warm leads, cold leads, if it was a sales pipeline or something like that. You've got it all down here. In the middle, you've got a big, you see what the data is actually looking like. And then on the right-hand side, you get some stuff about this file. When things get a bit more complicated, what you can do is you can write SQL. So if anyone is familiar with SQL syntax, you can basically query the file. This is probably not something that we're going to learn today, but it's just something to let you know that once you actually do start having a database or something like this, it's a perfect way to try and integrate your data and make sure that it all works together. So you can say, this is saying, I want to select 5,000 records from this sheet here. Don't worry too much about what remembering it or anything like that. I'll run this query, it's running here, down here, and in a second, all of my data will appear down at the bottom, taking a bit longer than I was expecting to. Anyway, whilst that's running, there you go. This data, by the way, is open data, come from Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow, which is a forum for developers, they make all of their data open. I've just scraped it all out and having a look at it right here. So that is data.world. But let's go back to my summary. That's this summary. So, keeping things in good order will save loads of time in the future. Collect and analyze data. You're doing this to make business decisions. You are not doing this in order to do some fancy statistics and show off. It's important that the decisions that you are making, even down to where shall I have my first office or something like that, it is important that you're using data to be able to drive these kind of things. And look for value in existing and open data. There is value everywhere, and you will not believe the amount of data you will be producing as an organization. It's just important that you centralize it in an individual place and then put it in a format that you can then get some value out of it, i.e. in a dashboard or something like that. That's really, really important, and something with these kind of drag and drop tools that you can really do quite a lot of. So those are kind of three gunning mantras that I was trying to hope that would kind of resonate upon leaving. Things you could do, and it's not necessarily could is the crucial word, you could have a cloud instance of a database. So what you could do is you could explore on your existing website the database behind it. So say you have a WordPress, rather than logging in through your normal WordPress login, you would log in through a separate login onto your domain. You probably might need to contact your hosting provider to be able to work out exactly like that. If you're hosted through UK Fast, I'm sure they will gladly help you show you how to do that. So have a look at your existing website database. That would be very interesting. Writing a data strategy, I think, was also one of the first things that every organization should do. But I'm biased, so make sure that you kind of know exactly where is the data coming in, where you're going to store it, and what you're going to do with it ultimately, and how you're going to use it on a daily basis with business. I think that's very, very important. If you want some templates about how to write a data strategy or something, I'll more than happy send some on afterwards. if you're, I would say the final point is far less probably for a kind of business point of view, but just for a kind of professional development, or if you're interested, I can also give you lots of ideas about how you could do some machine learning or something with R and Python. That's quite heavy duty, but if you were interested in that kind of thing, I will definitely share some links around for that as well. So yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.